Okay, so we're on to crop circles now, and anyone that starts talking about Doug and Dave, who originally supposedly created these, I want you to wipe that right out your memory banks right now. Yes, people do create them, and yes, Doug and Dave were paid to create them by the UK. I don't want to say their name because I don't want to get banned or anything, but it's part of the establishment. Anyway, the reason why I know that Doug and Dave didn't do them is because Doug and Dave apparently done them in 1976. So that's the end of that, because Sir Patrick Moore, who is a famous astronomer, or was a famous astronomer, saw one and recounted it in 1963. That's 13 years before Doug and Dave started doing it. So straight away, they didn't do it. So how far back does the crop circles go? Well, actually, 1678. There's a record of it called the Mowing Devil. Now, this was a carving that someone had created because they couldn't figure out. It was carved in wood, actually. They couldn't figure out what was going on, and of course they thought it was a devil coming at night or during the day and creating these bloody weird things. And bearing in mind they couldn't see them in 1678. They didn't have hot air balloons, they didn't have aeroplanes, they didn't have... And to see some of these crop circles, you have to be really high. Really, really high. If you just use logic here. So if you was inside, if back in 1678 or onwards, now bear in mind that may have been prior to that, but that's what you would see. Sometimes maybe a bit lower. So you wouldn't actually get the full, you wouldn't actually know what's going on. Now, if you're in a field in Wiltshire or in England, around that time, there was no internet. Who would you talk to? You'd just say to your local neighbour. There was no telephones back then. So that is why it's difficult to say how old they are, other than that carving. So, who would you have walked to the policeman and said, "Someone's been vandalising my field"? Not really. They wouldn't really care. So, get the Doug and Dave out before I carry on. Some are man-made, some are not. Now anyway, and there's a fantastic video that Richard D. Hall from that richplanet.net has done on some people that claim they do all the crop circles, which is really weird because some of them are simultaneous in other countries. But anyway, go there, look for this crop circle expose, and it's fascinating to find out who's actually was paid to deliberately make these to confuse the waters, to muddy the waters. More on crop circles next video. Here's something really interesting for you. In 1991, a farmer in Germany, Grasdorf, that's the place, came across a newly formed crop circle, but where the red dots are showing, they found 3 of these discs, DVD disc sized objects, which, as you see, actually has the same pattern as the crop circle. Now, one of these discs was pure gold, the other one was 99.9% silver, and the last one was bronze. Now, I'm not 100% sure what they're used for and why they was even left there, but there's a thing called the Roswell stone. So just remember, this is raised here outside of the disc. There's a Roswell stone, which is this, and it's got raised image on it, and the actual image is the same as a crop circle image. Now, this stone was found in Roswell, New Mexico, and this crop circle was UK. I want to show you how media lies and how people that originally tell the truth are persuaded not to tell the truth anymore. So, back in 1996 in the UK, near Oliver Castle, a guy was walking his dog, or a young guy was walking his dog, and he had his 8mm tape camera with him, and that's not impossible because I used to walk around with my tape camera, 8mm back then. And he saw these orbs flying around this field while he was out walking his dog, and he started to record them because he thought that was really weird. And then they created a crop circle, which I'll show in a minute if you haven't already seen it. Now, people try and debunk that. Now, I remember the original story, and the original story was he then went to his local pub and started showing everyone the footage on the camera, and they were all shocked, and then word spread, the local newspaper got involved, and then bigger newspapers, and then America, in fact, got involved, and they went to special effects industry people and asked them, is this footage real? And the special effects people said yes, they looked it over and they said, yes, we believe it's real. Now, bear in mind, 1996, this was when Windows 95 had just come out. So you're talking about very slow computers. Now, Jurassic Park was only 3 years before this. So for someone to have the ability to do what he done was remarkable with a Windows 95 computer. Editing software can do it now, obviously, but back then it couldn't. So what's interesting is this guy filmed this handheld. Now I'm going to play it. You'll see my camera wobbling, but he was wobbling as well. So right, so there's the orbs, and before you know it, these crop circles. Now this is consistent with loads of other people saying that they've seen orbs create crop circles, but obviously he was lucky enough to have this camcorder. See, so it's wobbly. See his camera work there, was all over the place. Now, debunkers on TV shows have turned around and said it was fake because, and they recreate it, but they lock the camera down. If you know anything about filming, when you lock a camera down, you have what they call a clean plate. So there would have been a crop circle with a crop field with no circle in it. They record for a minute, and then they go down, spend 2.5 hours making a crop circle, come back and press record again. And because the camera's locked in position, you can manipulate that. Yes, back in 96 you could have done that. Dissolved from one to the other, so it looks like within a few seconds the crop circle was formed. But his was handheld. Match moving software or camera tracking software didn't come in till well into the 2000s. So that's genuine from that point of view. Now, later on, he was. People say that he was doing it for media. Seriously, if he was doing some sort of stunt with an 8mm camera, the quality was pathetic. So he was persuaded, I believe, to change his story. So just carrying on with the from the video last time, the guy, I believe, ended up working in graphics or computer editing or special effects, but obviously he was interested in it, otherwise he wouldn't have had a 8mm camera, and they weren't cheap back then, as for his age anyway. So he moved into that. So then, of course, debunkers turn around and say, oh well, he did that back in 96. Doesn't quite work like that. Just because he was interested in filming and everything doesn't mean that he did that back in 96. And obviously the technology for Windows 95 didn't have the technology that he had there. And as I say, experts actually watched. It wasn't just a merge, it was the actual crop got flattened in a circular motion. So but there are other footage out there of orbs flying around cornfields, so it all makes sense and it is genuine, and I don't want to hear anything different. It is genuine, and that's it. So the Roswell Rock, found in New Mexico, where the alien craft crashed in 1947. This stone, which has a raised symbol on it, which actually matches a crop circle from the UK. This guy found it while walking. Now the military would have combed that area, but because this is a rock, they've obviously missed it. Now there's a couple of properties to this. Now one is that it has the image of a crop circle in the UK, even though this was found in New Mexico. The other property is they've tried to cut through the stone and do all sorts of things, but it's really difficult to recreate that. They've tried sandblasting, different ways to recreate that raised thing as sharp and as well defined as it is, and that people have struggled. The rock is solid. There's nothing inside the rock. They've done all sorts of scans and everything else on the rock, but it's also got right on the tip there where the actual image is. There's a magnetic force, and if you look there, it's moving the rock. So he's got a magnet, so it's magnetic. Now, my conclusion on this is that it was in the craft. It's a genuine article, and it was part of the star map. So in other words, that is there's the crop circle there. So that is either our planet and our moon, or some description for the aliens to use. And I believe they used that. There's a program called Stargate actually, and they did similar with a little grey called Thor, and he was moving these rock type things around on this glass plate, and then the ship would fly there. So basically these rocks, I've got a feeling Stargate's obviously, whoever wrote that's fairly clued up. So the rocks are literally a sat nav or with using the magnetic. Now, as we know, magnets, we used to use magnet tapes, all sorts of things. So magnets store information. So on that rock, in that magnetized rock, there is a star chart, I believe, and that will be represented by, you know, different rocks they would be representing different areas. So this is probably our solar system or our planets, I'm not sure. Now, if we did that now, we would package it in plastic and it wouldn't last very long. So the reason why they used stone and magnets is genius, really, because that will last a lot longer than us. We like to have things that look pretty, but they don't last. Whereas if we had you know, old VHS tapes on stone and using the magnet, they'd outlive us, you know, thousands and thousands of years. So I believe it's genuine and it's a star map, and that's why they used magnetics. Crop circles are a worldwide phenomenon, but they also appear in water, in snow, in leaves, in fields. These are just obviously fake ones. But the difference between a real crop circle and a fake crop circle is these nodes. These nodes get superheated by the real orbs, and they're done as a UHF microwave frequency, apparently, according to W.C. Levengood. Now, you should check his research out. He goes into a lot more detail than I can here. And the crop that's actually inside a crop circle grows 400% more than the crop outside the crop circle. And they're normally found on ley lines, crop circles, but the man-made ones are flattened and the stems are broke, whereas these are not broke. The proper ones are never broke. So that's the difference, and obviously there's energy inside which can cause batteries to. This crop circle has brow inside there, raised dots, which makes it obviously a unique crop circle, and that was done in California. Now, it was covered extensively in newspapers at the time, but what they don't tell you is as soon as the US Army found out, they went there, they dug up the roots of this crop circle, they put them on the back of a truck, they set fire to the whole field, and then they drove off with the roots. Now, does that sound like they were worried about a man with a plank of wood? No. There's also other reports of army helicopters, blacked out helicopters with cameramen filming crop circles. Why would they do that if it's just a man with a plank of wood? Now, there's a guy called David Clayton who is an ex-Royal Air Force engineer, and he claims that the MI5 pay people, that's the MI5 in the UK, pay people to fake crop circles to make sure that we all think that they're fake instead of having real ones. I'm still talking about crop circles, but I'm talking about the orbs now that create the crop circles. So I've mentioned in previous videos about the orbs or spirits or entities or drops of water, whatever you want to call it, soul that enters yourself while you're being born. Now, I think those are on, you know, a plane of existence which is low. Then if they die, or if you die, then it moves over to the next plane of existence. And then the spirit then, or the entity, whatever you want to call it, can move up different planes of existence. Now, I believe the ones that create the crop circles are the same ones that come out of physical UFO ships. And they can also split. And I'm just showing a video here just to give you an example. This may not be orbs, but orbs can actually be massive in size. So I think that basically it's an entity that's well up in the higher planes of existence compared to your spirit entity. Don't worry, this isn't what you think it is. This is me talking about the Smithsonian. Wait, don't run, because you know what I've said about them. I don't trust them because they always try and debunk things, and yes, they're doing it here with the art of the crop circle. They're saying that everyone's pretty much fake. But we know different now because we know that they were actually way done before these people. Now, these people here, there's a video of actually Doug and Dave doing it, showing, yes, very clever that they did do that, but they do break the corn. So I've been asked, why do we not see crop circles anymore? It's because of this. Newspapers, which, you know, when you get your head around it, newspapers don't want us to know about UFO or any of the stuff that I've been talking about. So they tell us everything's fake, and therefore no one bothers reporting on the crop circles, but they're still around. Crop circles still appear every year in crop. So you know, in the UK, so if you want to go and see one, you could pretty much time it right, and there is tours. Some farmers allow that. So there's a crop circle that was done here in Wales in 2001. And this is a reply to a message that was sent out called the Arecibo message. And that was sent out in 1974 using radio waves into space. And this is a reply. So basically, this is what we sent out, and this is the reply that we got. You see the difference there. Now, each one of these different things represents something. So obviously that's showing what the characters look like that's done this. That's showing the population of the planet. That's showing the kind of telescope or radio that would be required. So I'll just give you an idea here. This is a breakdown of what someone's done of that crop circle, which is classed as a reply to our message that we sent out into space. So if you look down here, average height of the alien with the big head is 3.4, so just under 4 foot, which would make it probably one of the Zeta Reticuli, and I'll go on about that in another video. But so this is really interesting because it talks about their population, how many stars they've got, how many planets around their area, and what kind of telescope to talk to them back on. Now, if this was fake, it's very well done. Someone's really clued up on everything, because they even talk about what kind of, we're carbon based. I think they said this was silicon based. So whoever's done this is really, really clever and knows what they're doing. If it is fake, if it's real, then the next video that I'm just about to show you is kind of a warning to us, and we might need to heed it. Thanks. This was a crop circle formed in 2002, and it shows an alien grey. Now, whoever done this, whether it's the alien greys themselves or a fake person doing it, has done it right, because see the pupil there? Actually, they do have pupils. They're just using a cover over their eyes, a bit like sunglasses, really. Now, this is a disc, and it's been found to contain binary code. So when you break the binary code down, it reads out to: beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. And then the damaged word, possibly. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. Bell sound. Now, I'm worried that they're actually talking about our governments. Originally, when I first knew about this, I thought it was other aliens. But thinking about everything now and what's happening, how they're lying to us, the governments, about vaccines and stuff. What is a crop circle? Please don't say it's a hoax. I've covered that. They're 400 odd years old at least, and for a man to see them, so they're not made for man or woman to see them, because you would need to be a couple of 100 feet in the air, if not 1,000 foot, and we didn't have the technology 400 years ago to see that, nor would we have the brain power to even understand what they were back then. We didn't have computers or photographs properly 400 years ago, so we would have had to draw it on paper. It wasn't made for man, and they would have just done it smaller, because whoever's doing it is sentient. So if you remember, I said before that there's two types of orbs. There's the ones that go inside you, and I say orbs because that's the natural state of them, the light beings, the ones that enter you, and then there's the other types that's higher up, higher planes up. Now, what I believe is the ones that are higher up go into the ground, find out about the Earth, and report back using these to the UFOs above. Let me tell you a story, and this is a good one. So, people have been abducted by aliens, and this is to do with crop circles, actually, so bear with me. And while they've been abducted throughout their lives, they've been forced to learn this code, these symbols. Now, these ones here are just representations of what people remember seeing on what they call an I-beam that was part of the crashed Roswell ship. So these are just from what people remember they look like off of some part of the ship. But anyway, going back to these people. So these abductees are sitting on this chair in a ship, looking at a screen, and the symbols next to them would have A, that would have B, for example. I'm using these as an example, and C, and so on. And over the amount of times they've been abducted, they had to keep learning all the symbols, what these symbols mean. Anyway, one day, one of the, many years later, and he's now an adult, turned around to the aliens because he's now a contactee as opposed to an abductee, and I'll explain the difference in another video. He turned around to him and said, look, why are you teaching me your there's symbols and that? It's a load of rubbish. And then they showed him for about 4 or 5 seconds a few different symbols, and bang, he had read a whole book in those 3 or 4 seconds. So the speed of what you can see on symbols is quicker than us reading left to right. So what I'm saying is a crop circle, although we're just looking at it as symbols, it's probably telling a whole story about what the planet's up to, in other words, the state of our Earth around the world, which is why they're all different in different locations. So I'll just give you an example of why symbols can be better than reading left to right. So look at this. This is a way that we now could learn to read. So you get the point. So symbols could be the way of the future. So let me show you something else. Crop circles, apparently if you spin them, this is something I'd heard years ago, if you spin a true crop circle, you will see something miraculously happen, like a 3D image or something like that. I'll let you go and try that. This is a poor quality video and I'm not sure if it's a true crop circle, so you have to do it with the true ones. So that's interesting. And one last thing, it's said that if you print out a copy or even have an image on your phone of a true crop circle, it will bring you good luck. I haven't actually tried it. I know, as stupid as it sounds, I should really print one out and just keep it in my wallet. But the people that have said that good fortunes come to them. So thank me and send me money if you come to it. Cattle mutilations. I have to be careful not to show any graphic pictures. I don't want to be banned or blocked. But who thinks, I mean, hopefully you know what cattle mutilations is, but who thinks that it's done by military? Who thinks that the military haven't got their own cattle and decide to fly around the world, sometimes, mostly, to be honest, mostly at night, land their helicopter, because obviously it had to be done by helicopters because the gates are still locked and there's no visible signs of people walking in and out. Who thinks that it's the military that land there, do some sort of operations on certain cows, kill them, drain the blood somehow without one drop being spilt, and then fly off? Okay, if you believe that, then please don't watch the rest of these videos. Okay, so we know it's not the military. So there's a little picture up there. It gives you a clue where I'm coming from and where eyewitnesses are coming from. Okay, some background information on cattle mutilation. So if you're interested and I don't cover enough for you, suggest getting this book, Black Ops Alien Spirits, Bigfoot and Our Untold History, available on Amazon. Highly recommend it as well. It's on Kindle and Amazon. So it's not always cows that get mutilated. It could be horses, it could be deers, it could be cats, and I'll go into that later. It can also be humans, which I'll go into later. Now, the general thing that actually happens to them is their eyes, ears, udders, anus, and sex organs and tongues are removed, and sometimes the skin around the jaws removed. Now, this is done surgically with what appears to be lasers as opposed to a knife, because autopsies say that it must have been done with some sort of laser. Cattle mutilations first were reported around 17th century, so well, that rules out the American military as we know it now, going around in helicopters doing it. So let me explain what actually happens. So it's generally at night. A UFO will fly over, pick up a certain animal that it's got marked that it wants to pick up, picks it up in its laser beam, light beam, takes it on board. Now the animal's still alive at this point and still conscious. It's paralysed, can't move, and we know this from eyewitnesses who've also been abducted at the same time and have stood next to these cows where they can't move, and then there's pipes coming from the cow taking the blood, which explains why there's never any blood when you find a cattle mutilation. They actually take the blood, and I'll explain later why. So then they do the operation, and then they beam this thing back down to earth. Farmers who have lost many cattle to cattle mutilations, alien cattle mutilations, set up cameras. Many of them have, and they cannot capture the UFO doing it. They have seen it with their own eyes. They've seen the beam dragging this cow along, if the UFO is on the ground, or being sucked up into the air if it's in the air, but they can't capture it. Now I'll just explain why they can't capture it, because we've got the technology now to look for spy cameras, and they light up like a light. So if you shone this device around your room and there's a hidden camera, it will shine like a light back. And they've obviously got the technology to know where their cameras are, so that's one of the reasons why you can't find them. When an animal is sent back down to earth from the ship, it actually has crushed bones on the side that it hits the ground. Cattle mutilations cost the industry millions, and some farmers have actually gone bust because of the amount of cattle that's been abducted and mutilated and died. Now, what happens is, before they get mutilated, they're actually taken aboard. In other words, a previous time, could be a month, could be 2 months, I don't know. But a craft will come along, pick up the cow, and do some bits to it, inject it with various things. Now, to be honest, I don't know what they do to it, but I know they do this. And then they send it back down, and they send it back down while it's alive. So here's a video here of showing a cow coming through the roof when the alien beam tries to send it back down. Watch, I'll try and play it a couple of times. And there it is, poor cow, and that's still alive. So that poor cow will eventually be picked back up. I'll just play it one more time. Will be picked up again and finally mutilated, whereas this time I'm still talking about cattle mutilations, but this time I'm now explaining what they do with the parts that they harvest. Now, they take the blood. Blood is really important to them. They take the blood plasma, and the reason for that is the little greys, it's possible the tall greys as well, I do not know, but I know the little greys have been seen ingesting blood plasma through their skin. In other words, that's how they eat. They don't actually have teeth like we do, and their mouths are absolutely tiny, so they survive off of blood plasma. And guess where that comes from? Not just cows, but other animals. And this next video I'm going to show you is going to scare you, because there was a series of cat mutilations in Croydon in England. Police tried to make it sound like it was a man, but these were happening simultaneous. So I'll cover that in the next video. What do I think the cattle mutilations actually are for? Well, I've mentioned what the blood, I believe, is for, but the other parts of the bodies that they take, I think it's to do with them, first of all, taking the creature and implanting it with things that will eventually grow over time. It could be a month, could be a year, I'm not sure. So it's sort of basically using the cattle as an incubator. And then when the time is ready, they come and harvest the bits that they've already done to the animal. So now whatever it was has grown, or it could be a virus, it could be creatures, tiny little creatures, I don't know. But whatever it is, they come back and take at a later date. So unfortunately there's no record to say when a particular animal was picked up first and then mutilated the second time. So there's no time, so we don't know how long it takes. I was right, it was the Americans taking the items from Iraq, the Sumerian tablets, etc. They've offered to return them, so ISIS didn't do it. Along with cattle mutilations, there was a series of cat mutilations in 2014. Now, cat mutilations happen all over the world, but there was a spate of them. Over 400 cats were taken, mutilated, and when I say mutilated, they were surgically mutilated with precision, some sort of laser type tool that defies sort of our explanation of someone going along picking them up. Now, some of these actually happened at the same time around Croydon, so it wasn't just one person, if it was one person, but we know it wasn't. Now, there are cat killers out there, people that actually kill cats, like this one recently in Brighton who was captured on CCTV, but there was never any CCTV footage of these 400 cats ever, and some of them got returned back in the same place a week later, which is kind of weird. The police, after 3 years, decided it was foxes that were surgically removing parts of their organs that you can't even get to without proper tools. Human mutilations, just like cattle mutilations, do happen. If you're interested in this, the best place to see uncensored research is richplanet.net. Just type in Rich Planet human mutilation, and then click on the first video, first link, and then it brings up a video, and there's, I think, 3 parts to this video, and they're about 40 minutes each. He does a fantastic job. So just giving you one example, a couple went missing, finally were found in their car, mutilated, with parts of their face surgically removed and things like that, eyeballs gone. So obviously some alien has taken them, done whatever they needed to do to them, and returned both of the people back, which is kind of scary. He covers all of this. So don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, just in case I get taken down on TikTok. And also I do live chats on there. You can watch the whole video. I just want to play a quick clip from a series called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, or The Curse of Skinwalker Ranch, depending which country you're in. Can't praise this program highly enough. They've already done 2 seasons. Fantastic if you're interested in any of this kind of stuff. So basically they have security cameras around Skinwalker Ranch. They had cattle. All the cattle run off except for one.
Here.
And this cow here is now lying on the ground. And above it is a UFO.
It looks like an object above the tree.
So what happens then, I don't want to spoil it, but what happens is basically the cow dies. They get autopsy and stuff done, but they can't figure out what's wrong with it. They put the body, there was no mutilation, so maybe it got caught. It saw that the UFO saw that the camera's there or whatever, but they moved the body to the other end of the ranch, expecting coyotes to eat it, etc. A year later, nothing touched it, not even beetles. Listen to my voice and I will hypnotize you. Well, not really, I'll probably just put you to sleep. But this guy here has been hypnotized. He's just about to talk, and he has, at this point, he'd seen some mutilated cattle, and then him and his brothers look up and they see this basically UFO coming towards them. Then it hovers, and I'm just going to play you the next bit.
Changed from a pure white to an orange. I said, Mark, son, you're picking up a cow. I said, yeah. Hear that cow?
So basically, the UFO picks up the cow. This is on a video on YouTube called Strange Mutilations. I think it's actually originally called Strange Harvest by Linda Moulton Howe, but you can find it on YouTube. It's a couple of hours long. Very, very worth watching. Something interesting on where we find mutilated cattle. Now, I know I've said it's all over the world, and it is. But when you look whereabouts, so for example, this is the United States. This is called the 37th parallel, and the cattle seem to be mostly taken from this line here around the globe. And I say globe, not flat Earth. So that's the cattle, but it's not just the cattle. This is showing UFO reports over the same area. So as you see, the UFOs have been using these sort of lines to travel backwards and forwards. Instead of going this way, they seem to always, not always, but mostly go this way or that way back, instead of up or down or ziggy-zaggy. So you've got to then wonder what the reason is for that. Is it to do with ley lines? I don't know. All the armies around the world, the secret ones, do not need to come and take a cow to mutilate, but they do have secret bunkers doing secret things, such as, and this is just a small list, animal-human crossbreeding, cloning humans, atomic manipulation, advanced mind control, brain memory recognition in humans, human brain transfer, yeah, they're doing that, human brain acquisition, research the human aura, auric energy fields of humans, astral out-of-body manipulation, and voyeuring voyaging, where they spy on things. PSI research, audio visual, which is wiretapping, but with visual as well, and matter exploit and manipulate. Now they didn't mention time travel there, and that's probably because CERN does that kind of stuff.